The night smelled like rain and gasoline. A lonely stretch of highway glistened under the faint orange glow of broken streetlights. A girl in a torn lavender dress ran barefoot along the edge of the road, clutching a small backpack like it held her entire life. Because it did. Her name was Lila, and behind her, headlights sliced through the darkness. Someone was following her. Her breath came in uneven gasps, tears mixing with a drizzle on her face. When she reached a curve, she spotted a parked car with its engine idling, a silver sedan, windows fogged. Desperate, she pounded on the window. The man inside, Ethan, looked up from his phone, startled. He saw fear in her eyes before she even spoke. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "He's coming. I need help." And without a word, Ethan unlocked the door. "Before we dive deeper, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? It amazes me how far a single story can travel. Drop your city. Let's see how wide kindness still spreads." Lila slid into the passenger seat, shivering. Her hands trembled so violently that Ethan turned off the heater fan just to hear her speak. "Who's after you?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, staring at the raindrops racing down the glass. My fiancé." The word cracked in her mouth. "I didn't choose him. My parents did." Ethan frowned but said nothing. Outside, a black SUV slowed at the intersection before speeding past. Only when its taillights vanished did she breathe again. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice smaller now. "I just needed to get away." Ethan watched her for a moment. Her mascara had bled into thin rivers under her eyes, but she still sat upright, defiant in her pain. "You got somewhere safe to go?" he asked. She shook her head. "Just away. Anywhere away." He nodded, started the car, and pulled onto the road. The highway stretched endlessly, broken by the hum of tires and the rhythm of wipers. Neither spoke for several minutes. Then Ethan said, almost to himself, "You look too young to be running from a marriage." "I turned 21 last month," she murmured. "They said it was time to stop dreaming." That sentence lingered between them like fog. She reached into her backpack, pulled out a photograph, her parents, smiling stiffly beside a man twice her age. "He owns half the town," she said, bitterness soft beneath exhaustion. "My father said love doesn't matter when comfort does." Ethan glanced at the photo but kept his eyes on the road. "And what do you think matters?" Her answer was immediate. "Freedom." For a long while, they drove in silence again, the storm growing heavier. Each flash of lightning illuminated her face, pale, determined, broken in ways that had nothing to do with the rain. When they finally reached a small gas station, Ethan parked under canopy. "You hungry?" he asked. "I can't pay you," she said, embarrassed. "I didn't ask for that," he replied simply, stepping out. Inside the dim station, the air smelled of burnt coffee and wet asphalt. Ethan grabbed 2 sandwiches and a pair of sodas. Lila sat by the window, still trembling slightly. When he handed her the food, she whispered, "You don't even know me. Why are you helping?" He shrugged, opening his sandwich. "Maybe because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it." Her eyes softened. For the first time, she smiled, just barely. "Then thank you for seeing me. If you were there in that moment, what would you have done? Be honest. Comment your answer below. And if words fail you, just hit like to prove that compassion still matters." They ate in silence, the hum of the rain becoming almost soothing. But beneath it all, something unspoken lingered, a question neither dared to ask. Ethan's phone buzzed once, lighting up his face with a notification he quickly dismissed. Lila caught the faint glow of a name she didn't recognize, Dr. Reeves. Something about it made her wonder. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, and as Ethan glanced out at the storm, his jaw tightened, as if he knew this night wasn't just about rescuing a stranger, but facing something he'd been running from too. The rain grew heavier. The past, closer. The rain drummed harder on the windshield, each drop tapping like a heartbeat growing restless. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the blur of highway lights ahead. Lila sat quietly beside him, hugging her backpack, the only thing tethering her to what she used to be. The car heater hummed low, casting a faint warmth that didn't quite reach her trembling hands. "Who's Dr. Reeves?" she finally asked, her voice careful, almost too soft to hear. Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't look at her. Just someone I used to know. The way he said used to told her enough. It wasn't a friend. It was a wound. The silence returned, thick and tense, until he spoke again. You don't have to trust me, Lila, but if you want to get far, I can help you. Her eyes flicked toward him. Why are you being so kind? He gave a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. Because once I needed someone to be kind to, and no one was. That answer sat heavy between them. The rain softened a little, as if the sky itself was listening. They drove through the night until the storm thinned into a mist. Dawn began to stretch faint pink fingers across the horizon. The light made her look fragile, the kind of fragile that comes after surviving something brutal. Do you have any family? Ethan asked, his tone gentler now. None that would take me in. He nodded slowly. Then I guess tonight, you've got me. She turned toward him. For a moment, she almost believed she was safe. Hours later, they pulled into a roadside diner, the kind that smelled like bacon and black coffee. Inside, an old radio murmured country music while a waitress in pink lipstick scribbled orders on a pad. They found a booth near the window. You should get some sleep after this, Ethan said. You look like you've been running for days. I have. She stared at her reflection in the glass. Hollow eyes, cracked lips, hope flickering like the neon sign outside. Where were you planning to go? He asked. She exhaled. There's a women's shelter in the next town. My friend told me they sometimes help girls like me start over. But I don't even know if it's real. Ethan nodded, pulling a small wallet from his jacket. He slipped a few bills across the table. You'll need this. Lila froze. I can't take your money. Yes, you can. His voice softened. Take it as proof that good still exists, even if it shows up in unexpected cars. Tears gathered in her eyes before she could stop them. You're too kind, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Nah, just trying to balance my debts. She tilted her head. Debts? He looked away. Yeah, the kind that aren't about money. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? Write yes, and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. They sat quietly as a waitress refilled their coffee. The warmth seeped into her fingers, her body relaxing for the first time in days. She noticed a faint scar along Ethan's wrist, a small, faded reminder of something dark. What happened there? She asked. He looked at it, smiled thinly. Bad choices. Old life. You don't talk much about yourself. Not much to say. He leaned back, just a man trying to drive far enough to forget what is done. Something in his voice, the quiet ache, made her heart ache too. For the first time, she wondered if they were both running. Outside, the sun began to climb, washing the diner in gold. It should have felt hopeful, but it didn't. There was something about Ethan's calm that felt practiced, like someone who'd been too close to pain for too long. When they finished breakfast, Lila excused herself to the restroom. Ethan pulled out his phone again. The screen lit with another message from Dr. Reeves. You can't keep running, Ethan. It's been 2 years. You need to come back before it's too late. He turned the screen face down. His fingers trembled. By the time Lila returned, she caught the faint tremor in his hands but didn't ask. She just offered a small, tired smile. Ready? She asked. Yeah, he said quietly, pushing open the diner door. The morning was bright now, too bright. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt the truth clawing its way up. He wasn't just her rescuer. He was part of a story she didn't know she'd entered yet. The highway stretched endlessly again, sunlight spilling across the cracked asphalt. Lila rested her forehead against the glass, tracing the movement of trees blurring by. Every mile felt like a small victory, a step further from the cage she'd escaped. Yet she could sense something beneath the calm, an unspoken storm sitting between them. Ethan drove with quiet focus. His knuckles were pale against the steering wheel, his eyes flicking toward the rearview mirror more often than usual. You okay? He asked after a while. She nodded. Just tired. You can sleep if you want. Lila hesitated, then leaned back in the seat. The gentle hum of the road lulled her into a light doze. Ethan glanced at her once, her hair falling across her cheek, her hand still gripping her backpack even in sleep. There was something heartbreakingly familiar about her fear. He'd seen it before, in hospital rooms, in women who came through places that were supposed to save them. His phone buzzed again. Another message. You promise, Ethan, don't get involved again. Not after last time. He swallowed hard, locking the screen. He couldn't look at her now. When Lila stirred awake, they were passing through a small town, gas stations, thrift shops, and a half-collapsed billboard that once advertised a wedding venue. The irony wasn't lost on her. Where are we? She asked. Brookhaven, he said. About 20 minutes from the shelter. Thank you, she murmured, for not asking too many questions. He smiled faintly. Sometimes questions do more harm than silence. She turned toward him, studying his face in the daylight, the tired eyes, the faint shadow of stubble, the lines carved deep by regret. You've helped people before, haven't you? He didn't answer right away. I used to work somewhere where helping people was my job, but I wasn't always good at it. What do you mean? Ethan kept his eyes on the road. I worked in trauma recovery. Addiction, abuse, the things no one wants to talk about. I tried to save everyone, but I lost someone I shouldn't have. The weight of his voice made her chest tighten. Was it someone close? Someone who trusted me? For a few seconds, neither spoke. The hum of the tires filled the space where pain lived. Lila reached over, hesitant, resting a hand on his arm. You can't carry that forever. He exhaled, shaky, broken. Tell that to the part of me that still wakes up hearing her voice. Outside, the sky dimmed again, clouds thickening like the world couldn't decide whether to rain or heal. Lila's throat ached. She knew guilt when she saw it, the kind that never left, just changed shape. Do you think people like us ever really get to start over? She asked quietly. He looked at her, eyes raw but steady. Maybe starting over isn't about forgetting. Maybe it's about forgiving yourself enough to keep going. That line settled deep in her, deeper than she expected. The road ahead curled toward a valley blanketed in fog. Somewhere beyond it, a small shelter waited with peeling white paint and a broken sign that said Hope House. But before they reached it, a loud crack shattered the calm, the unmistakable pop of a tire bursting. Ethan swerved, fighting the wheel as the car veered toward the ditch. Gravel sprayed, the world spinning in chaos before they finally came to a hard, jarring stop. Lila's scream faded into silence. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. Are you okay? She asked, voice shaking. He nodded, catching his breath. Yeah, just a flat. We're okay. He stepped out to inspect the damage. The back tire was shredded, rubber hanging like torn fabric. Lila followed him out, wrapping her arms around herself as the wind picked up. I'll fix it, Ethan said, crouching by the trunk. But before he could reach for the jack, another sound cut through the air, the distant growl of an engine. Lila froze. She knew that sound. Her heart dropped. That's him. Ethan turned sharply. A black SUV crested the hill, its headlights slicing through the mist. Get in the car, he ordered. Lila stumbled backward. No, you don't understand. He'll... Lila, now. She jumped back into the passenger seat, her breath quick and shallow. Ethan grabbed a wrench, his pulse racing. He could see the SUV slowing, pulling to the side of the road not far behind them. He whispered under his breath, Not again. Lila clutched her backpack like it could shield her. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might light someone's path tonight. Ethan's hands trembled as he worked to replace the tire, every motion frantic. The SUV door slammed shut behind them. A tall man stepped out, sharp suit, slick hair, anger radiating off him like heat. Lila, the man shouted, You think you can run from me? She flinched, tears burning her eyes. Ethan straightened, stepping slightly in front of her. You need to leave, he said calmly. The man smirked. Who the hell are you? Someone who's not afraid of you. For a second, everything went still. The wind, the birds, even the world seemed to hold its breath. And in that silence, something in Ethan's eyes changed. The calm of a man who'd already lost everything once. and refused to lose again. The man's polished shoes crunched on the gravel as he moved closer. Lila backed up until her spine hit the cold metal of the car door. Ethan stood his ground, posture rigid, shoulders squared like a wall built out of something old and unbreakable. "You don't want to do this," Ethan warned. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a dangerous calm. The man, Vincent, tilted his head, smirking. "You think you're a hero? You don't even know who she is." "I don't need to," Ethan said. "I just know she doesn't want to go with you." Vincent laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut through the mist. "She's my fiancée. She belongs with me." Lila's voice cracked as she whispered, "I'm not your property, Vincent." His expression darkened instantly, like a switch flipped. "You ungrateful." Before he could finish, Ethan stepped between them. "You should leave before you do something you'll regret." Vincent's eyes narrowed, a predator sizing up another. "You've got no idea what you're getting into." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Try me." The tension hung heavy, almost visible. Lila could hear her own heartbeat pounding against her ribs. Vincent's fingers twitched at his side before he finally scoffed, stepping back. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You can't hide her forever." He turned, got into his SUV, and sped off, tires spitting gravel, fury trailing in his wake. Ethan waited until the sound faded completely before he spoke. "You okay?" Lila nodded weakly, tears streaking her face. "He'll come back," she whispered. "Then we'll be ready," Ethan said. "We." He met her eyes. "You're not alone anymore." They finished changing the tire in silence, adrenaline slowly ebbing into exhaustion. When they got back into the car, neither spoke for several miles. Lila's mind kept replaying Vincent's face, the anger, the control, the threat wrapped in his smirk. She'd seen that look too many times before. Ethan noticed the tremor in her hands. "He won't hurt you again," he said firmly. "How can you be sure?" "Because I've seen men like him before. They feed on fear. You stop feeding them, they starve." She turned toward him. "You sound like someone who's done this before." He hesitated. "Maybe I have." Lila leaned her head against the seat, watching clouds drift across the sky. "You said you lost someone you tried to save," she whispered. "Was it someone like me?" Ethan's grip on the wheel tightened. Her name was Grace. She was 19. Her boyfriend. He stopped, his throat tightening. "I promised to protect her, but I was too late." Lila's breath caught. What happened to him? He was arrested, but that didn't bring her back. The car fell into a thick, heavy silence. The road hummed beneath them, endless and empty. "I'm sorry," she said softly. He nodded. "That's why when I saw you tonight, I couldn't drive away." Something in her chest cracked open. Not fear, not pity, but something like understanding. For the first time, she realized Ethan wasn't her savior. He was a broken man trying to rewrite a story that once ended in tragedy. They reached the edge of the next town by sunset. The shelter appeared ahead. Hope House, its sign crooked but still standing. Lila stared out the window, her breath hitching. "That's it," she whispered. Ethan parked. Neither moved. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly. She nodded, fingers gripping the handle. "It's the only place I can go." She stepped out, the gravel crunching under her shoes. The air smelled faintly of lilacs and old rain. "Thank you," she said, turning back to him. "You didn't have to stop that night. You didn't have to do any of this." Ethan's eyes softened. "Maybe I needed saving too." She smiled, fragile but real. "Then I hope you find it. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red hot hash. Sometimes one little symbol says what our hearts can't." She walked toward the door of the shelter, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Ethan watched her go, something inside him unraveling quietly. When she reached the steps, she turned one last time, rain glimmering on her eyelashes, hope flickering in her eyes. He raised a hand in silent farewell. Then she disappeared inside. Ethan sat there for a long time, watching the door like it might open again. It didn't. Eventually, he started the engine, the hum filling the empty space beside him. But as he pulled away, headlights appeared behind him, the same black SUV. His pulse quickened. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. Not again. He pressed his foot down, tires screeching against the wet road. The SUV followed, closing in fast. Whatever Vincent wanted, it wasn't over. The night swallowed the road again, headlights carving brief tunnels of light through the darkness. Ethan's jaw was locked, eyes darted between the rearview mirror and the highway ahead. The SUV loomed behind him like a shadow that refused to die. He turned sharply down a side road, gravel spitting beneath the tires. The forest pressing on both sides, black, silent, endless. But the SUV followed, its lights bouncing off the trees like a monster breathing down his neck. Ethan's heart pounded. He reached for his phone, thumb hovering over a contact that read Dr. Reeves. But before he could call, a loud crash echoed, the SUV clipping his bumper. The car jolted forward. He swore under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter. Come on, come on. He turned off the headlights, plunging the road into near-total darkness. The only sound was the rain tapping the roof like restless fingers. For a moment, the SUV's lights disappeared. Silence. Then, a screech of tires behind him. The SUV spun out, skidding across the slick mud before crashing into a ditch. Ethan slammed the brakes and stopped, chest heaving. He stared into the mirror, the SUV half buried in the embankment. Smoke rose from the hood. Every rational thought told him to drive, to leave. But something deeper, older, wouldn't let him. Not again, he whispered. He stepped out into the rain, his shoes sinking into the mud. The air smelled of gasoline and metal. He approached the SUV slowly, hand shielding his face from the smoke. Vincent was inside, dazed but conscious, blood running down his temple. He groaned, fumbling with the door. Ethan, he rasped, help me. The irony of the plea twisted Ethan's gut. He could walk away. No one would know. He could let fate do what it wanted to the man who'd terrorized Lila. But in Vincent's trembling voice, he heard the echo of another night, another choice, another life he'd failed to save. Ethan yanked the door open, grabbed Vincent under the arms, and pulled him free just before the engine caught fire. They both collapsed onto the wet grass, coughing. The explosion came seconds later, a sharp, violent bloom of light against the dark trees. Vincent lay there, staring up at the sky. His breath came in broken gasps. Why? Why'd you do that? Ethan sat beside him, soaked to the bone. Because letting you die wouldn't fix what you broke. Vincent turned his head weakly. You don't even know me. No, Ethan said quietly, but I know her. Vincent's eyes flickered, guilt or confusion. Ethan couldn't tell. You think she'll forgive you? Ethan asked. She won't, Vincent muttered, staring into the rain. She was supposed to make me better. I thought if she stayed, I'd change. Ethan's voice softened, a weight in every word. Love doesn't heal when it's chained. Vincent said nothing. Only the rain answered. Ethan stood, breathing hard. You need to turn yourself in. Tell the truth, everything. Vincent laughed bitterly. You think that'll fix a life? No, Ethan replied, but it'll start fixing yours. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Ethan called for an ambulance, the glow of the wreck flickering behind him like a dying memory. When the sirens finally came, he gave a brief statement to the police. The pursuit, the crash, the rescue. He didn't mention Lila. Hours later, he sat on the tailgate of an ambulance, blanket around his shoulders, staring at the horizon just starting to pale with dawn. His phone buzzed again. Dr. Reeves. He answered this time. Ethan. The voice was firm but kind. Yeah. You did the right thing, Reeves said softly. You can stop running now. Ethan closed his eyes, exhaustion and rain mixing on his face. Maybe, but I don't think running was ever the problem. Reeves sighed. You saved someone tonight. Ethan's voice cracked. I tried to save too. Silence. Then the doctor said, sometimes that's enough. When he hung up, Ethan looked up at the gray dawn. Somewhere in that same morning light, Lila was waking up in a shelter bed, safe for the first time in years. And though they were miles apart, their stories were still tied, not by tragedy anymore, but by the fragile thread of redemption neither expected to find. By the time Ethan reached the town again, morning light had broken completely. The roads glistened, quiet after the storm. He drove slowly this time, not to escape, but to breathe. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked older than he remembered. His eyes ringed with a kind of tire that comes from more than one sleepless night. He parked a few blocks away from Hope House and just sat there, hands resting loosely on the steering wheel. He wasn't sure why he'd come back. Maybe to make sure she was okay. Maybe to find a reason to move on. Across the street, the shelter door opened. Lila stepped out, wearing clean clothes someone must have given her. Her hair was still damp, but her face looked different. Not free yet, but lighter. She carried a small notebook in her hands, holding it close like something precious. Ethan stayed inside the car, watching her laugh softly with another woman on the steps. That sound, pure and fragile, felt like a kind of healing he'd never known how to reach. He smiled faintly, ready to drive away. But then she looked up. Their eyes met across the road. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then Lila crossed the street, slow but certain. She stopped by his window. "You came back," she said, breath visible in the cool air. "Just wanted to make sure you made it." Her eyes softened. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said, smiling faintly. "But sometimes doing what you don't have to is what makes you human." She hesitated, clutching the little notebook. "They are helping me file charges. Against Vincent. I told them everything." He nodded. "Good." "They said it might take time, but I'll get there." "You will," Ethan said quietly. She looked down for a moment, then held out the notebook. "I've been writing. It's letters. To myself. To remember who I was before everything." He took the notebook gently, flipping to the first page. The handwriting was small and shaky. The first line read, "Dear me, you are not what he said you were." The words hit harder than any scream. Ethan's throat tightened. "You keep writing these," he said softly, handing it back. "One day, you'll read them and realize you became someone stronger than your pain." Lila smiled, real this time. "Maybe that's true for you too." Her words lingered. For the first time, Ethan didn't flinch when someone spoke hope into his name. He started the engine, unsure what to say next. "Take care of yourself, Lila." "I will." She stepped back as he drove away, watching until the silver sedan turned a corner and disappeared. If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. Ethan didn't drive far. Just a few miles down the road was a quiet overlook, the kind of place where the world seemed wider than your sorrow. He parked there, cut the engine, and stepped out. The air was crisp, the wind gentle. Below him, the town shimmered faintly, still waking up. He thought about Grace, about the letter she'd left behind, the one he could never bring himself to open. Maybe it was time. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out the crumpled envelope that had lived there for years. The ink was faded, but her handwriting was still unmistakable. With trembling fingers, he opened it. "Ethan, you did your best. Please stop punishing yourself for what life took. You showed me kindness when no one else did. That's what I want you to remember. Not how it ended, but how it felt when someone believed I deserved better. Don't run forever. Find someone else who needs what I did. And this time, let it heal you too." He pressed the letter to his chest, eyes burning. The wind carried her words away, scattering them into the valley like forgiveness itself. "For the first time in years," he whispered, "I forgive you, Grace, and I forgive me." The sun broke through the clouds, soft gold spilling across the horizon. And for the first time since that terrible night, Ethan didn't feel the need to drive anywhere. He finally felt home. The days stretched into afternoon, calm and quiet. Ethan sat by the overlook for hours, the letter still folded neatly beside him on the hood of his car. 4 years. He'd been running from ghosts, Grace's memory, the guilt that clawed at his nights, the mistakes that shaped the man in his mirror. But now, for the first time, the silence didn't hurt. It just existed. Down in the valley, the town hummed with faint life, church bells, children's laughter, the slow rhythm of an ordinary world. Ethan realized he hadn't noticed those sounds in a long time. He'd been living like a man behind glass, touching life only through regret. He looked toward the road that led back to Hope House. Part of him wanted to check on Lila again, to see if she was still smiling. But another part knew she didn't need saving anymore. She needed space to grow, and he needed to let go. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. This time, he didn't hesitate. He called Dr. Reeves. Ethan, the familiar voice answered. "Are you all right?" He smiled faintly. "For the first time in years. Yay. I think I am." Reeves' tone softened. "That's good to hear. You thinking of coming back?" "I am. Maybe not to the same job, but maybe there's still something good I can do. Helping people again." "Helping myself by helping them," Ethan replied quietly. There was a pause. "You've always had that in you, Ethan. You just forgot it for a while." Ethan looked at the horizon, where the clouds were breaking apart. "I think I remember tonight." When he hung up, the quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. Back in town, at the shelter, Lila sat on her bunk with a small notebook open on her lap. She was writing again, this time, not to her past self, but to the man who had stopped that night when no one else would. "Ethan, you saved me before I even knew I needed saving. But more than that, you made me believe there are still people who act from kindness, not because they expect something back, but because it's who they are. You said maybe you needed saving too. I hope you found it, because you deserve peace, just like I do." She smiled through quiet tears, folded the page, and tucked it into the back of her notebook. The sun slanted through the window, warm and golden. For the first time, she didn't feel afraid of tomorrow. Outside, a gentle breeze carried the smell of rain and lilacs. The world felt wide again. If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this section with hope. Maybe someone scrolling right now needs to see it. 2 days later, Ethan walked through the doors of Harbor Counseling Center, the place where he used to work before his life fell apart. The receptionist blinked in surprise. "Ethan." He smiled. "Hey, June. Long time." 2 years, she said softly. "We didn't think you'd come back." "I didn't either," he admitted. "But I think I'm ready now." Dr. Reeves appeared from the hallway, a knowing look on his face. "Welcome home, Ethan." Ethan breathed in deeply. That word, home, carrying a weight and warmth he hadn't felt in ages. He followed Reeves into the office, familiar yet foreign. The walls still bore photographs of people they'd helped, survivors who'd walked through fire and found light again. He ran his fingers over one frame, a group smiling under a banner that read Second Chances. Reeves watched him quietly. "You were always meant to come back, you know." "Maybe," Ethan said softly. "I just needed to find the road that led here." That evening, when he stepped back outside, the sun was dipping low. He looked up at the soft pink sky and whispered, almost to himself, "Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Lila." And in that still moment, he felt them both, one gone, one living, like twin lights guiding him toward forgiveness. He got into his car, turned the key, and smiled at the quiet hum of the engine. This time, he wasn't driving to escape. He was driving toward something worth living for. The next morning, the sky was painted in soft peach and gold, the kind of light that promised gentler days. Ethan stood outside Harbor Counseling Center, coffee in hand, watching people pass by on their way to work. For once, he wasn't a bystander to life. He was part of it again. Inside, the day moved quietly. He spent his hours listening, to voices cracked by fear, to stories that mirror the same wounds he once carried. But instead of breaking him, they grounded him. Each confession, each trembling hope, reminded him that pain didn't have to end you. It could reshape you. By evening, he sat by the window, writing in a small notebook of his own. He wasn't sure when he'd started, but the words flowed easily now. Healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without drowning. It's forgiving the version of yourself that didn't know better. It's realizing that sometimes saving someone else is just another way of saving you. He closed the notebook gently, a faint smile on his lips. Across town, Lila walked through the park near Hope House. She carried her own notebook, the same one she'd shown him. Each page was now filled with tiny pieces of hope, things she'd seen, feelings she'd rediscovered. Children played by the fountain. Couples strolled hand in hand. The world, she realized, was full of second chances. She found a bench under a tree, sat down, and pulled a small envelope from her bag, addressed in neat handwriting, Ethan Carter. She'd written it days ago but hadn't known where to send it. So she simply whispered to the sky, "You'll find it anyway." Then she opened her notebook again and began a new page. "Dear future me, you survived. Not perfectly, but honestly. And maybe that's enough." She closed her eyes, letting the sun warm her face. For the first time since she could remember, she didn't feel like she was running from something. She was running toward herself. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, "Not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still stayed kind." One click can be your way of saying, "I felt you." That evening, as dusk settled over the town, Ethan locked up the counseling center. He slipped his notebook into his jacket and walked toward the overlook where he'd read Grace's letter. The air smelled of pine and rain. The valley below shimmered with distant lights, tiny human constellations. He leaned against the railing, breathing in the stillness. Somewhere down there, Lila was laughing again. He didn't need to see her to know it. Some stories don't need sequels, they just need peace. A soft wind brushed past, carrying the faintest sound, like laughter and forgiveness intertwined. Ethan smiled. "You were right, Grace," he whispered. "Saving someone else did save me." He looked toward the horizon one last time, where the last glow of sunset melted into night, and whispered quietly, "Thank you." Then he turned back toward town, toward life, and walked away from the past for good. The camera would have followed him from behind if this were a film. The fading orange sky, his figure small against the endless road, and the faint echo of a heartbeat rising in the background. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do isn't to run, but to stay. And somewhere between the pain and the healing, both Ethan and Lila finally learned the same quiet truth. That love, real, imperfect, human love, doesn't always rescue. Sometimes it simply restores.